I pulled my rifle up to return fire, and it jammed on the first round that I fired. But they're not testing for physical fitness. They're testing for intellect, will, drive, heart. Certain pain motivates me just because it makes me angry. The country's valuable, man, and it's worth fighting for. And if you're not proud of the country, make a country that you can be proud of.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is such a tremendous honor to welcome Earl Plumlee, Medal of Honor winner, served in both Force Recon in the Marines and as a Green Beret in the Army. He is a true American hero and just an all-around badass. Thank you so much for coming, Earl.
Yeah, that's high praise. Thank you.
We were at an event we met recently, and Donald Trump Jr. was there, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was there, and the room was full of special forces people. And what interested me there is how many of the special forces people were like fangirling out over you. So they were giving you mad respect, man. So you're a man amongst the most manly of men, which makes you a very, very rare breed.
Yeah, I love representing my community. I guess I love it when they kind of hold me up. I like, that's one of my calls to action is to represent the community, because getting a Green Beret to tell a war story is usually a pretty good trick. So and obviously mine's kind of public, so I get to be the guy that does it.
Yeah, situations like yours draws a lot of attention to the special forces.
Well, so a famous Green Beret is kind of those aren't supposed to be a thing.
Right. You're supposed to be.
Nobody knows who did it.
Yeah, stay quiet. So, hey man, I want to kind of go back. What drove you to join the military in the first place?
Well, yeah, man. Charlie Sheen.
Oh, in platoon or something?
Well, yeah,
the hot shots.
I come from a military family, man, and it's kind of a rite of passage for our family. So I always knew I was going to serve. I just didn't know where. And Charlie Sheen as a Navy SEAL, I was like, that's what I'm supposed to do. Now, obviously, a Navy SEAL is pretty much the only thing I didn't do in my career. But I always like to give Charlie Sheen some props, because that movie came out and just really blew us away. In the 80s, that was a
good one.
Huge influence.
Had lungs like a fish.
Yeah.
So I was reading, did you start off in the National Guard?
So I went to join the Marine Corps in high school, because I heard you could join with a what is that? What do you get when you don't graduate?
GED.
GED. I heard you could join with a GED, and I had pretty good grades and considered myself fairly intelligent. So I was like, I can just get a GED and get out of here my sophomore year. Turns out there's some other caveats that make that not possible. But they said, you can join the National Guard right now. So that was the next best thing. So I signed up and served in the National Guard my junior and senior year in high school,
and
which was great. I was a 13 mic. It's a rocket artillery, but it's still a tracked vehicle. So every weekend I'd go drive a tank around in Fort Sill, which is a great place for a high school kid to be. It kept me out of trouble, relatively speaking, because I was always getting a tank stuck or driving it where it's not supposed to be. So I was still getting in trouble, but army trouble.
Yeah. When did you make the transition to joining the Marines?
As a senior. So, the National Guard was great. It wasn't really what I envisioned as my military adventure. It was, I always imagined, being Charlie Sheen.
A war fighter.
You're supposed to be in a different country, saving the world. And the National Guard does good things, but they mostly do it in their state. And so I wanted to go and see things and do things, and I became a Marine infantryman right after I graduated high school.
So as an infantryman, were you in that position long before you tried out for Force Recon?
Yeah, I mean, well, depends on who you're asking. At 20-year-old Earl, I was there forever. But really, I did 4 years as an infantryman, and then after that became a Force Reconnaissance Marine. So at the time, it seemed like I was there forever. It's like I was we called it assault dog. I knew everything about the infantry. You should have just asked me. But really, I just barely mastered what it is to be an infantryman. Kind of started being I mean, I was a leader as a corporal, 2 years in, but being an expert in the craft and being able to apply the craft and to teach it. So really, I wasn't there that long. 45-year-old Earl doesn't think that I was there very long, but I did 4 years as a infantryman and 4 years as a reconnaissance marine.
And what gave you the idea that you wanted to go to Force Recon? Because that's when, like, you're asking for some heavy shit in life when you make that decision.
I mean, I just wanted to be cool,
That's one way.
And so as a young guy, I just wanted the coolest uniform and the coolest gear, and also I wanted to do the most important mission. So that's what drew me in, and what really matured me was, I mean, I did get to do that. I was a Force Reconnaissance Marine, and it was an incredibly rewarding career. But when I really figured out what's going on the battlefield, we were flying back to Al Assad, and there used to be a road, route uranium, and you could always find uranium back in 2005 because it was either exploding or there was something on fire. And I remember flying back over that road and looking at it. And I still had friends serving in the infantry, and I really kind of captured what my job was. Everybody in the Marine Corps, you're either in the infantry or you're supporting the infantry, and that really hammered that home. That my job was to influence the battlefield as much as possible, so that those guys could drive down a road without getting blown up every 3 miles. But originally, I was, I'd like to tell you that I was this master strategist, and I really realized all these great things. But I was 20. They had cool badges and better gear, and naively, I thought walking into a bar full of attractive women that they'd all swoon when they found out I was a Force Recon Marine. Later, found out that no woman really cares what kind of Marine you are, as long as you got the dress blues.
I made that same mistake with muscles, man. I worked out all the time, and then I got real big, and I realized the only people that care about muscles are other guys. It's like, you get compliments like, "Dude, you're huge." What kind of compliment is that?
Most things that men do with the idea of impressing women, I guess maybe indirectly it works, because if a woman sees you, having counsel with 15 other men, they're like, oh, he must have something going on. But you get super fit, you attract a lot of dudes. You buy a super cool car, you attract a lot of dudes. And being a Force Recon Marine was kind of the same way. The only people that were super impressed with me being a Force Recon Marine were other male Marines. So it's one of those life lessons.
Yeah. So when you decided that you wanted to try out, did you go and were you doing additional training, or did you just go out there with, your nuts in your hand and do it?
Well, I use this example, man. I just went out and went for it. And so I talked to people that are intending to try out for elite units, and they always tell me that I'm going to try out next year or the year after, but I got to get trained up first. I was like, oh, interesting. Have you worked as a selection cadre for special forces or as a Force Recon Marine? And they're like, no. I was like, then how the hell do you know how to train yourself up? And I always get the so show up. All those assessments are looking for basic physical fitness, but they're not testing for physical fitness. They're testing for intellect, will, drive, and heart. And you can't work on that stuff. You either have it or not. So being physically fit is important, but however fit you are, we're still going to strip that away and see what actually lies beneath that, because that's what we need. I can train anybody to be fit. I can't give you a strong sense of moral, ethical purpose, and a force of will where you are willing to just throw yourself at a problem until you find success.
You can't coach stupid either. I mean,
You can't coach stupid. Yeah. If you're not smart enough, I can't fix that either. But so I always tell people, yeah, get fit, obviously. But if you're training up for more than 6 or 7 months, and you're in your 20s,
you're running past the finish line.
yeah, bro, like you might want to show up and find out what we're actually looking for. And all the special units now have a glide slope where you can come in, and they'll help you with your fitness and then assess you. So if you're out there working on your own, you're probably setting yourself back years.
What was selection like for you? Did you find it hard? Was it discouraging?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say it like this. It's not easy. I mean, but for me, I kind of built it up in my head when I left the Marine Corps to come to Special Forces selection. I really built it up as this, huge Mount Everest, and really all it is just to weed out the people that aren't supposed to be a Green Beret. And if you get weeded out, it doesn't mean that you're not a good person or a good soldier. It just means that you would not thrive in our environment. And then the other thing is, we only have a finite amount of resources and time, so we need to make sure that you're able to master the skills as fast as we give them to you. But it's not meant to be this gate to keep people out. It's just to help aggregate the pool so that when you actually start the course to become a Green Beret, you're not wasting our time, and we're not wasting your time. So to me, it was physically difficult. I don't want to undersell that I just walked out there and breezed through it whistling and didn't know what the fuss is about. But it wasn't the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life, and if you're a young guy just hitting it for the first time, it may seem like that, but I promise you, there's going to be other things that are worse than selection. But it was a great tester, and I love the confidence that a young man can have after he's been selected. Because whether you go to become a Green Beret or you decide it's not for you and you go somewhere else, rites of passage and physical and mental tests, I think, are key to building a competent person. I think that's something the American society kind of really got away from.
Hey, yeah, they lost it.
There's no rites of passage. I think that's a piece of confidence that people need, is to have been tested and found either wanting, and they go back and work on it, or they get the check that, hey, you are a master of this skill. So I think it's a great thing. I think people should. I always recommend people go try, and if they pass and they're like, hey, I actually liked working in those groups. Hey man, maybe you're going to enjoy a career in special forces. And if you go there and you're like, I never want to sleep outside that much ever again, like, well, you're going to hate being a Green Beret. So, go get an A&P certification and work on helicopters.
Well, I've spoken to PhD sports science people that have worked with the military, and I've spoken to a lot of special forces guys, and I was asking them. The sports science guy, I was asking him when he was working with special forces, what's happening there that's different? And he said, in short, we're looking for a guy that was able to push himself until he dies.
Yeah. So I always talk about that. That's that neat thing to learn, is when you totally master your mind over your body, and can turn your body's signals of uncomfortable or pain, and just turn those off and chase after some achievement, whether it be swimming or holding your breath or pushing a 3-wheel Jeep through the woods all night. That's that's one of those things like you're like, hey, I can literally I can decide when this is over. My body doesn't get to. That's a scary thing, but it's an empowering thing also.
So in your head, are you ignoring the stimuli? Are you going to a happy place? Are you doing a combination thereof?
I think I do. You know, so a lot of people ask me about this. Depends on the event. Certain pain motivates me just because it makes me angry, and so I kind of I work against the pain and get fired up and direct that anger toward whatever the task is. And then if it's something like a you know, if you're walking 20, 30 miles with a ruck on, I almost go to like a zen like state where I'm just not, I put all that stuff, all those, you know, blisters and your back hurting and every muscle on fire. I just push that off to a distant place and drive forward, you know, one foot in front of the other. And I don't even feel that I'm in pain until the event's over.
Yeah. So you passed selection for Force Recon. What was it like to get your acceptance?
It was, I mean, every elite organization I've joined has just been a super profound event. So, you know, I remember becoming a Force Recon Marine out at ARS, which was, you know, Fort Story on the East Coast there. And we had Captain Land as our guest speaker. And if you don't know who Captain Land is, he was the Carlos Hascock's commander. So he's a legend in the Marine Corps for both communities. And so he, you know, to get to meet him and spend, you know, some really small unit time on him, because I think of my class of 90 people that started, you know, 3 months later, I want to say we had like 15 or 16, and then Captain Land came and you know, hung out with that smaller group and told us stories of him and Carlos in Vietnam and explained to us what our job was. It was you know, it was a like super meaningful, profound event where I was like, I'm one of these guys now, you know. And it's a big transition where the instructors are always kind of standing with their their foot on your throat, trying to get you to leave. And at the end of it, you know, they're inviting you in as a brother, and that's just you know, it's more meaningful than any piece of paper they could ever give you.
Yeah. You so you get selected, and then what was it like when you went on those first couple missions? Were you feel like, holy shit, I'm running with badasses now? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, so my first team sergeant was a guy named Pat, and he's, you know, covered in scars. He'd been blown up in the Persian Gulf in '91. You know, I just remember him being like a Barnes like character. We were like, dude, that guy is literally terrifying. and and he expected a lot out of us. He had like, you know, zero patience for new guys, and you know, really held us accountable to the point where, you know, we really started you know, not goofing off in our spare time because you just couldn't. You know, in the infantry, you know, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you're out chasing girls and drinking beer, and then you know, working for Pat. I don't think I really was comfortable to let off the gas for probably a year. I was like super nervous about what he was going to hammer me with the next day. But you know, he was, he was a legend in the force reconnaissance community. You know, his team was you know, early in the Persian Gulf War. A lot of people don't know the Iraqis actually invaded Saudi Arabia first, just as we were kicking off our big invasion. But his team had been trapped behind enemy lines, and we all knew the story of his team breaking contact and calling RD on themselves. And you know, so that was my first, you know, mentor as a force reconnaissance Marine. It was a big deal.
Were your first few missions, when you get to that elite fighting force, are you put in positions where you are catching return fire or you're catching fire quick?
No, well, that's so. I always thought we were going to be going in and getting in all these incredible gunfights, which sometimes we did, but mostly we were. So our mission, as a force reconnaissance marine is like limited scale raids, kill capture missions for high profile individuals, or reconnaissance where
You're getting info.
if anybody shoots at you doing reconnaissance,
You messed up.
Yeah, they're not supposed to know you're there. And then when we did the kill capture missions, we had really good intelligence. We knew where the guys were. We always show up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and so most of the time we never shot anybody. We'd be jerking them out of bed, throwing handcuffs on them, and by the time they figured out who we were, we were already leaving. So like from the time we hit the ground to the time the birds are coming back, you're talking 30, 40 minutes total. So even though the fighters are in the town, don't know what's going on. And that was kind of, that's another, they would get all fired up because we're capturing key leadership. And then they'd go, shoot at the grunts that are in the area that we left. So we're stirring up a hornet's nest, and I'm already back, having coffee, getting ready for bed, while some 19-year-old E3 is paying the price for that.
So, I know you're an outdoorsman. I imagine you can be a sneaky bastard, right? So did it improve your skills out in the woods?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had some innate ability, especially, stalking game is much more difficult than stalking your average human.
Okay. Yeah, the senses aren't there.
Right, the senses aren't there. I mean, you go and sneak up on a guy that lives in the woods in Montana or something, you should better be careful. But your average Iraqi just hasn't spent that much time outdoors, and they just aren't that great at it. Afghanis were a little better, where you kind of needed to pay attention. And like if you walk around where Iraqis are, they don't notice. But if the wrong footprints are in a Afghan village, they spot it pretty quick. But yeah, I think I had an innate ability to do that. Every team I was on always got a few extra kudos when we did stalking and hide sites. From being outside, I had a really great idea of what right looked like as far as like hiding yourself and your people and your equipment.
But when you're stocking up on a motherfucker versus stocking up on an animal, what's the intent? Is it the same as the intensity level? I mean, the ante's up,
It
man.
was. I remember actually being kind of let down. I thought that I thought the first time you sneak up on somebody, you get the same thing, kind of buck fever feeling. But then, the first time I killed somebody, I thought it was going to be this big religious experience, and it's not. They're just dead, and then you move on to the next person, or you move on to the next piece of your mission. And I don't know if it was I guess it was a profound experience in that it didn't mean that much.
But the moments before, the anticipation, is it similar to hunting, or?
Yeah, it's the same as hunting, except for your a deer or a turkey is like always alert, and people just get comfortable in the weirdest places and kind of give you their life. So, yeah,
that's creepy.
If you're in a gunfight with somebody, that's a little different. But if you're shooting somebody that doesn't know you're there, it's I guess that's one of the blessings of being American. I was drastically overtrained for most of the people I fought.
Yeah,
which is what you want out of your military.
What was it like the first time you started?
That was kind of easy.
Yeah, what was it like the first time you started catching return fire?
Well, it's I think that hammers down the point where nobody likes it. That's not that fun. But it rounds are whipping around, and if somebody's a great shot, they're like shooting you or shooting at you, and if they're not a great shot, they're shooting around you. But it kind of comes down to, once you get on the battlefield, being good's not good enough. Like, the enemy gets to get lucky. A ricochet can bounce off the hood of your truck and hit you and kill you, and all that training and everything that was important to you is gone. But it's what they have. There's no atheists in foxholes.
Yeah.
I found that to be true. I made all sorts of promises to God every time somebody shot at me, which I
like St. Augustine,
because I make really big promises.
Yeah, like Saint Augustine, God make me holy, just not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you did your service as a Force Recon Marine. What made you want to make the transition to being a Green Beret in the Army?
Well, two things. I had my Marine Corps mentor, who's the godfather of my children, a man named Dave Hutton. He was kind of seeing me struggle with what our mission is and how we do business. Because being a Force Recon Marine it's an elite unit, but it's a conventional unit, and your job is to support the infantry in a Marine Corps uniform with a Marine Corps issued weapon, and to do it how the Marine Corps tells you to do it. And so I had all these schemes and ideas to get tricky on the enemy, and he was like, "Look, if you want to fight and influence the battlefield in the way that you're thinking, um, he's like, I think you should leave and go join the army and be a Green Beret because that's so calm and the Green Berets are really who do things that you're trying to do." Um, and I saw some Green Berets on our deployment, and I went to a school that they taught, and I really respected what they brought to the table and the kind of men they were. And I took the plunge and decided to go be a dirty, nasty, unshaven um, Green Beret with unauthorized boots.
Did you get a walk in, or did you have to go through selection?
I got to go. So I joined as an 18 X-ray, which is a program for people to just skip the majority of the army and go straight to selection. They still have to go to infantry school and basic. I did not have to do that because I was a Marine. They're like, you're a Marine, you can go straight to selection. So I did, which ended up being hilarious because I didn't know how to wear the Army uniform at all. And so I learned at this special operations preparatory course. I spent a lot of time doing push-ups for dressing like a weirdo, but the Army uniform was just foreign to me, and it had Velcro all over it, and there was a strange cultural difference in how you put it together. But yeah, I joined the Army, and probably a month later, I went to selection.
And so I'm sure there's some similarities between the two selection process, but were there any different?
No, it was culturally, it was so different, and it jumped out at me immediately. And I could really tell that I was joining a different organization just based on how they were assessing us.
Was it any more difficult?
It's not, well, it depends on the personality, man. I want to say that um, there's probably a right place for everybody, and it's not that going through selection makes you better than other soldiers. Sometimes it does, but if you're not the right guy, selection's like really hard, and if you are the right guy, it's not that bad. And but the biggest difference I saw was as becoming a force reconnaissance marine, your team was the key to you making it. Which I never went to buds, but I understand that's kind of the same way that your core people on your team are the key to you passing that. And so you would never let somebody fall behind because you needed them to keep your team strong. And when I got to special forces selection, helping people would actually get you kicked out of the course. It was really about the person, just what you can do and what you would need to succeed. And even they have a team week phase. It's not really assessing the team; it's just assessing how you, as an individual, contribute to a team, whether you're in it or running it. So it was a very different, and it jumped out at me immediately that the difference in the type of person they were looking for.
And so Force Recon, you guys went from 90 to 15 or 16. What
Yeah.
happened what was the count in the Green Berets?
So I don't know what the final count was, and I'm probably making numbers up, but I want to say like that we started with probably over 200, maybe 300 people. So I forgot, I used to keep it. I feel like my selection number was like 240 or 250 or something. But there was a huge formation of us that started, and most people quit. Like, most people are not found wanting. They just decide that they're not the right guy, and they quit in the middle of the night. So I didn't see them all leaving. And you're broken up into these teams, and you live in tents. And I went through selection in like an August time frame, so we were working at night because it was too hot in the day, because you'd kill people. And so I really didn't notice that we had lost a ton of people, because like you're on these individual hikes, these individual rucks. You do the land nav assessment. It's like a week long, and you're out there by yourself just doing land nav, and you'll see other students. But when we were almost done, and we had a formation before we started team week, and I remember being shocked at how few people started team week, which is the last little bit, and then probably only half of them made it through team week. And so I don't know the final number, but it was drastic. And then right. So what I understand also is, what I didn't notice, because you're still working in your small team and just keeping your head down. But of all the people I got selected with, like 60% of them did not go all the way through the qualification course and actually become a Green Beret. But you don't notice it as much, other than on the first day of selection and the last day, you're like, where did everybody go?
Well, what do you think? What advantages do you think that you have, either by nurture or by nature, wherever they are, that allows you to succeed in these environments where so many other people didn't?
I mean, other than obviously being a Force Reconnaissance Marine, and being in the infantry, being outside and having a ruck on my back, was, that's what my life was all about. So that wasn't a shocking trial for me. I don't feel sorry for myself when I've been wearing a ruck for a couple of days. So obviously that gave me a huge advantage. And then I think the biggest one, man, is I'm an outgoing, optimistic guy. It can be pouring rain, and we're walking around getting soaking wet, and I just find all of it hilarious. I really enjoy every silly thing that happened to me in the military. I'm always cracking jokes about the most. I remember we were walking through a swamp in selection, for no reason other than to walk through this swamp, and we're like chest deep in the water, and I was just cracking up at how miserable everybody else was. That was like hilarious to me. And so I just think, having a good sense of humor, being optimistic. I always think everything's going to work out. I think that contributes a lot to it. And I think that the type of person tends to pass selections more than like an Eeyore type guy that's like, oh, this is the worst, and I probably won't make it. If you're in your head like that, any selection event is like twice as hard.
Well, so
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so you make it, and now you're getting different work. Were these the type of missions that you had been longed for?
Actually, I didn't really know what a Green Beret did. I saw them working in Iraq, and I was like, that's cool. I didn't realize all of the other missions that they have. So all my first missions in Iraq, my first missions in Asia as a Green Beret, I didn't know that we did. So, and I came from the Force Reconnaissance community. Which you live good, but not so much better than an infantryman. And then my first mission as a Green Beret, we were in a freaking 5-star hotel. Getting laundry sent out, and ordering room service for 2 months. And I was like, I didn't know you could do this and be in the military.
That's cool, man. Well, are you allowed to talk about any of those initial missions?
Sure,
Anything? Yeah. What stuck out? Like, while you're a Green Beret, besides some of the more famous ones, what were some of the missions that stuck out?
So I knew that the DOW at this point, but for this story, the DOD and the State Department come together to execute U.S. foreign policy as an abstract. But as a Green Beret, you will deploy and work closely with the embassy. There's not all the time, but there is. It's not unheard of that you'll brief or be directly briefed by the ambassador and at least the country team that's there. So for me, I was like, I have definitely leveled up because I deployed my first real world deployment as a Green Beret. We flew in to the Philippines, and the first place we had to go was to the embassy and talk about what we were doing, what else they would want us to do, and what opportunities we might be able to seize on behalf of the State Department in the Philippines. And so I went from being a really cool infantry Marine to really kind of blurring the lines in between the State Department and the Army. Standing on the Army side, obviously, but seeing and touching that part was.
Well, I'm trying to go back. You and you're only a couple months older than me, so we're pretty much the same age. And so, was this around the time when the Islamists were kidnapping people in the Philippines?
Yeah, so the Philippines had a lot of things going on in it that I got to really see the bad guys. See what the U.S. foreign policy was diplomatically, militarily, and economically. And you see what terrorism is doing, what Chinese influence is doing, and then what we're doing to counter both of those to defend a key ally, which is the Philippines. But being in a country and having more than one bad guy and having some bad guys you can shoot at and some that you can't. Was definitely aggressive territory, and the learning curve was incredibly steep for a young guy.
Were any of the fighters that you guys encountered in all this combat, were any of them up to par? Did you ever feel like that you guys were meeting people that?
No, I met the guys I fought the day I earned the Medal of Honor were pretty good, but they weren't nearly. I mean, they were the best Taliban fighters I'd ever run across, but they were still definitely not as good as I was. Probably individually, just their weapons handling was pretty good, I would say. But even the best Afghan fighters, they maybe have some strength, but they're across the board. When you line up everything, they're really never as good as like any infantryman.
Oh, really? So
individually, yeah, like their rifle marksmanship and their weapons handling was really good. Like they were at a high level, not as high as I was, but probably at least as competent as your average infantryman is with his weapon.
So since we
they couldn't fight as a unit as well as we could. So when you read that, it was about 15 fighters. I was able by myself just to kind of hold them in place. Me and a group USIC pushed them back.
Well, start at the beginning, man. Start at the beginning. Okay. Everyone wants to hear this story. I want to hear it, and I like it. I didn't want you when I met you. I didn't want you to walk me through it. I've read about it, but this sounds like I read a bunch of Medal of Honor winner stories, and there's some good ones in there. But I have to say, yours is particularly badass, man. Like if you were making a movie, this one was like kind of over the top with some of it.
I'll tell the story. But to that point, man, the whole battle, I was like, nobody's ever going to believe this.
Yeah,
like, stuff like this doesn't happen, and it definitely it doesn't keep happening, over and over and over again. So I remember the whole battle thinking, this is like Steven Spielberg scripted the gunfight, and nobody's going to believe this story.
Yeah, it's a wild one.
And only, not for nothing. One of the reasons I got the medal was that there was so much physical evidence to corroborate the story that was not destroyed and not up in some valley. So I always like to tell people, it's a great story. That's a great gunfighting story. But I'm by no means an exception to the type of the people that become Green Berets and deploy. And I know a lot of stories that mimic what I have, but as a Green Beret, it's almost impossible to get really good valor awards because you need witnesses. And if you're out working with 40 or 50 illiterate Afghans, those don't count.
Yeah. So what happened that day?
So if you remember in 2013, we were pulling out of Afghanistan. There was a big push that we were going to leave, and we were closing bases all over the place, which we did. A huge drawdown, and all the conventional forces had left by the end of 14, I believe. And our FOB, FOB Ghazni, was chosen to be closed down. Unfortunately, the Taliban knew that we were closing it. And not just supposed, they knew that we were going to close it. They knew what date we were going to close it, so they picked us for one of these complex attacks because, in their opinion, either they would overrun the camp and kill us all, or there would be a profound attack that the Afghani people would be able to witness, and then we were going to leave so they could take credit for chasing us out of the province. So in order to do that, they brought in, let's see here, 4 5,000-pound suicide truck bombs and 1 20,000-pound bomb, and
40,000 pounds of explosives. Just wow.
One can. Only 1 5,000-pound truck bomb actually detonated against the camp. The rest either got lost in town or saw a target of opportunity. And one was actually destroyed by an Afghan police checkpoint. They spotted it, had a bad feeling, and shot it with an RPG and detonated it about a mile from our camp. And then the 20,000-pounder, the fuel pump went out, and so they were about 3/4 of a mile from the camp, and the high pressure fuel pump just gave up on this tanker truck, and the guy got out and just left it in the middle of the road.
Well, so they come. How did the perimeter get breached? What happened?
So they got one in. They got a cement truck, and the entire ball of the cement truck was a bomb, and they drove it into the wall of the camp across from where I was. So that was how the battle started for me. Was 4 or 5,000 pounds of explosives detonated about 800 meters from where I was at.
What was that explosion like? Could you feel? I mean,
you felt it, like literally, like to turn for I felt it in the marrow of my bones.
Yeah.
I didn't know what happened. I've been shot at. I've been around explosives, and I've been had near misses with indirect fire and RPGs, and that's a pretty good thump that you'll feel. I just remember feeling this just hard to describe, other than literally it felt like my bones were cracking. Explosion, and it rippled the very ground. The building I was in felt like somebody just took it and whipped it. I was in the medical shed for our company, and every single bandage and bottle of medicine came off the shelves and was just a big pile on the floor. And I didn't realize what happened. We've been getting indirect fire attacks, not every day, but most days. And I thought that a small artillery round must have landed in the room with us because of how dramatic that explosion was. And when I came outside, the entire camp was just in this thick pall of tan dust. And I remember being very striking to me, because when I went inside, it was like a very clear, beautiful day. And when I came back out, it looked like
haze.
Well, the Black Hawk Down, everything's dusty and tan filter. That's what the camp had turned into.
What was your reaction? What were your first steps?
My first reaction was I still wasn't for sure what happened, and I knew that me and the medic were fine, and so I was really trying to keep everybody from running over to where we were at, because we didn't need any help, and I didn't want everybody spooling up assets to come over and check on us. Um, but then when I was coming out, everybody was doing the same thing. Everybody thought their building got hit. So everybody was coming out like, "Hey, the OPSID got hit, the subsid got hit," and it was the med shed. So everybody, whatever building they were in, they thought their building was the one that had been hit. Um, and so I was like, "Well, we can't all be right. Like, who got hit?" But we were all right. I remember turning around and I could see this huge mushroom cloud just billowing up into the sky. And that's I kind of figured out what happened by seeing that. I was like, holy crap, you don't see that every day. And as I'm looking at it, I start hearing recoilless rifles. I start hearing RPGs, and then I profoundly remember hearing two machine guns. And there's a thing called talking guns, and it's where two machine guns kind of support each other. And so you end up with the effect of continuous machine gun fire, but it's two gunners offset from each other. And when one stops shooting, the next one starts shooting. So it helps them really suppress a target. The barrels don't heat up, and they conserve ammo, but they support each other by firing like that. And it's a pretty advanced technique that I've heard Americans do, but I have never heard an insurgent force use that technique. And I just remember hearing those guns working together, and I was like, "Oh, we're in deep crap."
And so, when did you head to the site of the attack?
I'm almost immediately. I ran out. I had all my equipment just sitting outside of our company headquarters, and we had just taken a change of command photograph, and I wanted to look super cool for that photo.
So you had your gear out.
grabbed my coolest sniper rifle, and I had all my gear set up because I wanted a super cool gunfighter picture for my Afghan war trip. And that picture and me, being a little bit arrogant about wanting everybody to know I was a sniper is why all my stuff was laid out. So I probably about 45 seconds or so after the blast, I was completely kitted up with my rifle, looking for a way to get to the battlefield. And me and a couple other guys started, deciding who's going and who's staying, and took off and headed toward the gunfight.
What did you first see?
Well, what I first saw was so the attack, the camp actually got hit from two sides simultaneously. And looking back on it, the majority of the battle I took part in was a distraction, honestly. So on the far side of the camp was where this bomb detonated, and then the near side of the camp where I was located, we had a huge Taliban force staged in this. We call it the hotel, but it was a hotel under construction, and they had moved into this hotel and started firing on the camp. So the first thing I saw was we pulled out of the camp, looking at this mushroom cloud still sitting there, and we can hear all the gunfire coming from where this bomb blast is. But then as we look off to our left, we can see a huge amount of fighters setting up all manner of weapons, and they're firing them directly down to the camp. And so we kind of had a dilemma: do we go fight those guys, or do we go check on this blast? But the wall was still intact, because I believe the truck bomb that was supposed to detonate in between us and the hotel, was the one that the Afghan police had detonated, and so it never made it. And so we had a huge wall in between us and them, and we had our security towers, and they were fighting back. So we made the decision that we should go to that blast site and see what's going on down there. So there was either going to be a gunfight or there was going to be a mass casualty situation. We didn't know. We were kind of suspecting that we were going to go down there and there would be wounded coalition soldiers all over the place. So we drove toward that mushroom cloud, and as we're doing that, we're taking fire. There was RPGs and mortars kind of landing in this road that we're in. So we're kind of careening through that, and linked up with two other guys on a 4-wheeler, the company warrant, and then medic from another team, Matt Horde and Chief Colbert. And they linked up with us, and we pushed down to the airfield, and we kind of slowed down. I had my sniper rifle, and so I was wanting to get up on some high ground and kind of lock the airfield down. And so they pulled ahead of us, and that's when the gunfight started. And so as soon as they pulled ahead of us, they both were taken under small arms fire by the 15 suicide bombers that had sprinted through the breach. We saw them get hit and fall down, and so we immediately pulled our truck in between them and the Taliban fighters, so that to provide a little bit of cover and pull them out of it. I didn't see how close we were to them because I don't know that we would have done anything different, but I could see that they were under fire. I just couldn't see where it was coming from, and so in my mind, these guys would be back a little bit. So as we pulled in to block that fire, we pulled right in the middle of these 15 guys. So they weren't like 50 meters away; they were like 6 meters away.
Oh shit!
So to block the fire, we pulled right in the middle of basically a horseshoe of about 12 or 15 Taliban fighters, and so instantly we got taken under fire.
And were you able to start taking them out quick, or
No, we just kind of got our butt handed to us there for a little bit. So I pulled in, and I immediately see all these. They were wearing Afghan uniforms, which worked for about a heartbeat until they started shooting at us. But I pulled my rifle up to return fire, and it jammed on the first round that I fired. So my heart dropped. I was like, dang it. All that training and all that
gun malfunction,
and I'm going to get killed. I'm sitting out here on my butt. And so honestly, I was staring at probably 5 or 6 guys out the side of my truck door, and my rifle jammed. And I dropped my rifle and kind of, honestly was thought they had me, and there was nothing I could really do about it at that point. But just in case, I pulled my pistol, jumped out of the truck, and started advancing on them. And my whole thought was just to buy Drew and Nate, who were still in the pickup with me, buy them a few seconds to figure out a better plan than mine. And so I just charged this group of fighters with my pistol. And,
well, I guess you were close enough. Did you start making contact?
Yeah, I started. The first round, I just pulled my pistol and pulled the trigger, and I don't even know where that one went. But I remember, like, hey, if I am gonna get out of this, I have to get hits immediately. And so I steadied my front sight post, aimed at the nearest fighter, and started pulling the trigger. And everybody, there's a drill we do called the El Presidente. It's where you rapidly access 3 targets that are stacked up. So I always tell everybody I did the most stressful El Presidente ever.
Yeah.
But I started getting hits, and I closed with them. I'm not sure why. Either they just got overcome by events. It was scary for me, but it must have been scary for them too.
They must have been thinking this guy's out of his fucking mind.
Yeah, well, especially when they didn't immediately kill me. But it's one of those things. God takes care of drunks and fools, and I'm dual qualified.
He loves the fools and idiots. Yeah.
But they missed me every time, and then they hit the guys. They hit the guys in the truck instead. It's just one of those. We went back and marked it up. I have no idea why the bullets went around me and hit those guys. And then by the time I got super close to them, the guys on the far left and right, they would have to be shooting at each other to be shooting at me. And I still had my pistol, but I got my little mental calculator down that I'm kind of running out of ammo, and my rifle's jammed. And I honestly hadn't come up with a good plan because I didn't think I was going to live more than 3 or 4 seconds, and then here we are, 5 or 6 seconds, and I'm still alive. And I kind of broke their little formation that they had, and I couldn't figure out what to do next. So I pulled out a hand grenade and just threw it at the nearest fighter, which people don't like hand grenades. And so as soon as I threw the hand grenade, I immediately started doing remedial action on my rifle, and I just kind of blindly threw it. But I remember as I tossed it out, it actually hit the nearest fighter to me when I dismounted. I had hit him with my pistol and wounded him, and so he was still kind of laying out there, and the grenade literally stuck under his hip, in between the ground, and he never even tried to pull that grenade away. He didn't try to roll off of it. He just drove his sights and picked me up with his AK and just started firing at me as I was doing remedial action on my rifle. So as I threw the grenade, I pulled back behind this little water tank, and I was just kind of sitting behind this water tank, unjamming my rifle when the grenade detonated.
And he just turned to confetti then, right?
It blew him in half. So
Yeah.
yeah. So which you don't typically see. So I remember my rifle was up, and I was jumping to my feet, and you could see him twirling around, cut in half.
And now you're alive, babe. You're still alive. So
Yeah.
so
I was like, yeah, holy crap.
when
And,
did the freaking vest start going off? I mean, when did the guy start blowing up?
right now? So I see a guy shooting at me from the airfield. He's about 100 meters away, and I can hear, and he's hitting the wall behind me, and he's knocking dust. And I remember feeling dirt running down my back. Like that feeling, super uncomfortable. I don't know why it jumped out at me so much, but I was like, I really hate that. So I killed him. But yeah, I dropped to a knee, and I put my crosshairs for my rifle right on the notch of his throat. I just remember he was laid there, and I could really see the notch of his throat. I pulled the trigger and detonated a suicide vest. Like, so he was gone. He was just a funny smell that the wind blew away. And which, I mean, he was 100 meters away, but that's still really close for a suicide vest. And I remember I was trying to look around because I couldn't figure out what happened for a moment. I thought maybe a tank had come out and crushed him with the main gun. But as I'm looking around this abandoned airfield, there's no tanks. And what are the chances that right when I pulled the trigger, that he would explode? So I figured out that I just shot a suicide bomber and detonated his vest with my sniper rifle, which is, that's a Dear Diary moment for every sniper.
No, and so you're probably having a little bit of trouble with yourself holding back the holy shit at this point.
No, I was like, great, from the free throw line, and nobody's out here to see it.
And so did you continue pursuing them?
So I killed that guy, and I'm kind of taking stock of the situation. So, as I threw that grenade, the majority of them had backed down this little alley. And I didn't know what their plan was. And I was on the corner from where I dismounted. And I knew that Chief Colbert and Matt Horde were hit. And it sounded to me like other people were hit, because I could hear everybody yelling. Chief's hit, Matt's hit, I'm hit, screaming for a medic. So I didn't want to go right back around that corner, because then the Taliban would just be right on top of us again. So I was, decided I'm going to go and close with the enemy and at least hold them from just freely maneuvering around the camp. Because we had a big camp attack on Bastion, where the whole intent of the attack was to get onto the airfield and destroy all the aircraft. And so we're on here with all of our helicopters, Polish and American. So in the back of my mind, I kind of thought maybe they're after all the aircraft, which they weren't. But that was kind of my mind, and I'll keep them from just freely roaming around the airfield by staying here and getting after them with my rifle. So I moved down to where they took off running. I got about halfway there down this little alley, and they had not run off. They were all there. They had just moved back, got behind cover. And as soon as I kind of traipsed down here, they hung muzzles out and started engaging me. Um, and I was doing my best. Uh, I had kind of a big rifle. That'd be great for being out in the mountains of Afghanistan, but all these guys are at that 10 to 15 meter range, and I had a little red dot on my rifle, luckily, because every time I tried to look through the scope,
All you saw was, yeah.
yeah, at a 15 by 25 power rifle scope, so everybody was filling up the entire lens. But I'm trying to engage them, and they're honestly they were individually they were pretty proficient. So as I'm picking guys up on my sights, they're pulling back behind cover, and I can't just wait for them because their buddies are still suppressing me. So I'm trying to kind of play whack-a-mole. I'm indexing targets and firing rounds as fast as I can, and I run out of ammunition. Or I hit bolt lock as I'm closing with these guys, and I have a monstrous Mark 20, Scar Heavy, and it's got all the lickies and chewies on it, so it's probably a little bit bigger than my grandpa's BAR as far as gun. So anyway, I dumped the magazine because I knew that in my mind I only had 2 or 3 rounds in my pistol, and I've got at least 7 or 8 guys to my front, so I figured my only chance of survival was getting my rifle back up. But as soon as I dumped the magazine, the nearest fighter to me threw his rifle into his sling, so that kind of spun behind him, and he took off sprinting toward me, and which ain't good in that part of the world.
Because he's going to blow up too.
Got my rifle reloaded as he was about halfway there. Sent the bolt home and pulled the trigger and instantly detonated his vest, which it felt like he was hanging off the end of my muzzle, but he was probably at that probably 5 or 6 meters from me when I shot his vest and detonated it, and which it TKO'd me. I remember that same feeling. I felt like literally every bone in my body had cracked in half. And it blew me down, and I was kind of TKO'd. I remember waking up, laying there against the wall, and looking up and trying to figure out where I was at. And a second fighter was walking down on me, trying to shoot me in the face. But he wasn't using his sights. He was just staring right at my face. And I remember he had a huge grin. He was so excited about it. But he was. There's a thing, if you don't use your front sight, if you stare at the target, you end up making a halo around the target. And so that's by looking at me, he was missing me. Luckily, so I pulled my rifle up and kind of jerked myself into a semi-sitting position and just started hammering away at him. And I killed him and folded him up in the middle of the road. Got to my feet and started engaging all his friends again. And I ran out of ammunition. So I went to reload, but I'm going to be a little more cautious. So as soon as I dumped my magazine, I took off running back to the corner where I'd originally come from, and that's where Drew finally got out of the truck and met up with me on the battlefield.
Did the battle continue at that point, or did they start?
Oh yeah. So Drew was looking for me. He'd seen me punch down there with my pistol, and so he jumped out, helped Chief and Chief Colbert and Matt Horde. He helped them get back away from the corner, through Matt Horde on a 4-wheeler so that he could get medevac off the battlefield, and then he closed down with that corner to see where I was at. So as he ran to that corner, I ran back around in it, and we kind of crashed into each other. And I told him, Drew, I know right where they're at. Let's go get them. And so he came with me, and we kind of, I perioded as I reloaded, and then he pushed to the far left side. And then we pushed back to where that last fighter had fallen. As we got there, that last fighter, he didn't detonate, but he was smoking. So every I probably fired 5 or 6 rounds at him. but his vest hadn't exploded, but it was just kind of sitting there smoldering and smoking. And as Drew and I kind of got close to him, it went low order, which it lit on fire. But high explosive burns like like a crazy blowtorch. And I don't know whether it was his grenades or if they started throwing grenades. They definitely ended up throwing grenades, but the whole lane was just kind of detonating with rifle grenades, hand grenades, and Drew and I ended up behind this little generator panel together, and they were kind of operating in buddy teams where one guy would suppress us with his rifle, and then one guy would pull hand grenades off of his belt and throw them at us. And so Drew and I are fighting back to that, getting the crap kicked out of us, really, because we're shooting back, but every time we're not actively engaging them, 3 or 4 hand grenades are rattling around on us, which we tried to count. We had after the battle there was a video, and you can kind of see where Drew and I are in this corner. We looked at the video afterwards, and it was at least 12 or 15, maybe more, because you can see them kind of detonating, and then the amount of explosions just overlaps so much that you can't really tell, which tracks with how I was feeling, because I just remember being back there and everything seemed like it was on fire or exploding. And I don't have a great recollection of how we got out of there. I just remember Drew kind of grabbing me and dragging me back toward the corner where the truck was. And I never really, I just remember getting blown up. But Drew has a pretty good memory of another fighter, as he and I would turn to run, trying to jump on us, and his vest detonating. I don't necessarily remember that. I just know that as we took a couple steps, and both of us got flattened by an explosion. But it makes sense, because I remember trying to climb. I was on top of Drew, and I'm trying to climb up, and I was trying to, my rifle was all tangled up, and I was trying to get it back right, and the stock was folded over, and the sling was wrapped all around it, and there was an arm from about the forearm down tangled up in the sling, and I remember trying to figure out why. I have 2 hands, but where's this other hand that's holding onto my rifle coming from?
So you had multiple vests explode. You had the big truck bomb explode. 12 to 15 grenades. So your brain's got to be somewhat. I mean, you got blasted and TKO'd, so your brain's somewhat concussed at this point, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I was slowly turning retarded. And I could tell how bad, like in the heat of the moment, I was like, yeah, we're getting them. But then afterwards I was like, that was an interesting choice that I had made. And the clarity of the situation is definitely gone. But we got up, we stumbled around that corner, and I remember kind of being confused about what we're doing and why we're there. But it started coming clear again. And we spent a little bit of time. The Polish were out starting to do their base defense drills, and they had these huge infantry fighting vehicles, and we were trying to pull one off to get it to pull through this area and support us. But the Poles had kind of lost all of their communications gear had been destroyed or interfered with, so the commander couldn't actually talk to any of his troops, and so they were hesitant to not go to where they were last ordered. So all the armor pushed through us and went out to where the breach was, and started engaging with the fighters that were supporting this assault force that had come through. So we're figuring out we're not going to get any help from them. And Chief Colbert came walking up, and I knew that he had been wounded. I'd seen him fall down. I didn't know that he was alive. So I was very excited that he was still out on the battlefield. And, he asked us what we were doing. We told him, hey, there's a whole bunch of them down here. We're about to go after them again, because Drew and I were kind of making a new plan to go back. He and I to assault this position. And so now we got Chief Colbert. We have one Navy SEAL on the whole camp, Lieutenant Turnipseed. And he has run across the camp and linked up with us. And so we break into two teams of two. The Turnipseed and Drew take the far left again, and then me and Chief Colbert are going to take the right. And I was like, before we go down there, I'm going to top off again because every time we've closed with the enemy, I've had to reload under fire in a CQB setting, which is like the worst case scenario for doing that. And I can't find any magazines. And as I look down, I realize I have no magazines left. I pulled a magazine out of my rifle, and it's got one round on the magazine. And so I was like, well, that ain't good. And Chief Colbert stacked up with me, and I remember like telling him, like, Chief, you got to go first. And he's like, why do I got to go first? And I was like, I only got one bullet. So you go first, and I'll cover you. And I remember he's looking at me, and he's like,
cover me with one round.
Yeah, since I got shot already, I have to go and get shot again. I was like, that's the new plan. Yeah, it's better that you get shot twice than me. Share the bullets with you. But so he steps in front of me, and we start moving toward that corner to go back down this little lane. And right as we're going to push, I remember hearing a voice behind me, and he's like, "Hey, can I come with you guys?" And I turn around, and it's Mike Ollis, who I've never met before. I only learned his name afterwards. But it's a young soldier from the 10th Mountain Division. And he has run all the way across the FOB through all this incoming fire, and with the same mindset that we had, run toward this blast because it must be important. And he had no equipment. He's got his Oakley M frames, a boonie hat, and an M4 with one magazine. And I remember looking at him, and I was about to tell him that maybe he shouldn't come because he only had one magazine. And I was like, that's pretty loud talk from somebody that's only got one bullet. Yeah. But so I told him, I was like, hey, it's pretty bad, but come on if you want. And so he and another Polish soldier that had come with him pull in behind us, and we go and close with the enemy one more time. We get back down to where they were. And I felt like we really got our tail kicked, but I guess to Drew and my credit, as we were up there in the grinder, every time we were shooting at them, we were getting hits. So almost everybody on the return trip with this big crew is either dead or wounded. So they're all laying around, and I just remember it looked like a medieval battlefield. There's just pieces of bodies all over the place because it's really small battlefield, probably 25 by 25 feet. This little concrete pad that had like a three road intersection on it, and we just kind of ground each other down right there. But as we get mostly into that, a fighter perks up, throws 2 hand grenades at us, and detonates his vest. And I remember just my perspective, like he threw 2 hand grenades, and I felt like one was in front of me and one was behind me. So I just decided not to go anywhere. And plus, I kind of had this, pretty high confidence that I could survive hand grenades because
at that point,
they just threw at least 15 hand grenades at me, and I hadn't got hurt at all. But anyway, I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm not going. Everybody runs off in different directions, and I just remember sitting there, and literally this hand grenade bounces off the wall in front of me and rolls out probably 10 or 15 feet to my front, and I was like, well, shit. And I was staring at it, and I was like, well, too late now. And I just remember thinking, I don't have eye protection on. I shouldn't look at it when it detonates. So I just turned my head into the wall. The grenade detonated, which it did hurt. And I was, I had this like kind of like numbing effect on my body, a painful numbing. And then after I was kind of wiggling everything and I was like, oh, I'm fine. Cool. And as I look up, I see Drew, um, you know, moving toward me, shooting behind me with his MP5. And I turn around and one of these fighters has run all the way around this little block we're fighting on, has attacked us from behind. So Drew's shooting at him. I shoot at him, fire my, bang, bang, fire my last 2 rounds. And whether we hit him or whether he detonated his vest, I don't know. But either way, his vest detonated. And the last man that stack was Mike Hollis. He was the tail end of this little group of us. And the blast blew Mike most of the distance to me. And at that point, I fired my last 2 rounds. My pistol was empty from the run that Drew and I were on. So I had pulled my knife out, and so I was standing there looking around. There's still a battle going on around the camp, and I've got my knife out. And it occurred to me that knife fighting people in suicide vests probably not the best way to do it. And somebody had to grab Mike because he was definitely wounded from what just happened. So I put my knife up and I ran over and grabbed him and drug him back into cover and started doing the best combat trauma aid I could do on him. But he was he definitely was about 2 or 3 feet max from a suicide vest. So he was a pretty bad,
Gravely injured.
And the whole time I was treating him, I still remember I would try to work on him, and then I'd always be worried because I was by myself that somebody was going to walk up behind me. So I'm kind of trying to work on him. I'm trying to keep track of the situation. And I saw a civilian, because I drug him back into this compound near where the battle was taking place, and there was a civilian kind of tucked in behind a generator. And I remember I was like, "Hey, come over here," and he was like, "No." And I was like, I get it. So I stood up and I was like, "Hey, can you run a rifle?" And he was like, "Hell yeah, I can." And so I made a big show of pulling a magazine out of my dump pouch and putting it in. So I put an empty magazine in my rifle. I sent the bolt home and, handed it to him and stuck him in the gateway behind me. And so I figured at least he'll yell something if he sees somebody. But I always wonder, who that guy was, and one time
He's playing dummy. Yeah,
he could be in the crowd and come up and punch me in the mouth. But I got Mike patched up as best I could, and we got him loaded up into a little Suzuki Mule, like the quad, and same thing. I get this guy in there. I was like, "Get ready," and I make a big show of providing cover to pump him up. And so he drives out through this, through all these bodies and all this, incoming fire. Because at this point, I didn't know, but that we killed the last fighter that had penetrated the base, but the battle off the base was still going. And so all these Polish armored vehicles were parked out just past our battlefield, and they were all just shooting willy nilly into the city.
Wow. So where did you go then? Were you out of the fight at that point? I mean,
well, yeah, the battle was pretty much over. I went and got an AK, which of course it was shot up, and then I grabbed another AK and built a better one. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and my incoming commander came and asked me what happened. I told him. And then we, Drew and Chief Colbert and Lieutenant Turnseed had got sucked into the exterior battle. They had come back to us, and my commander was like, I think our part of this battle's done. Let's get out of the way so that the Polish can, start really capturing their security, and let's get back on our footprint and find out what we got. because we really thought, by how much indirect fire landed, this bomb, this huge gunfight, we thought the camp would have just been annihilated with casualties, which we had a ton of wounded, but we got off really light, to be honest with you.
How many
in
people
comparison.
died on the Allied forces side or on your?
So only Mike Wallace as an American, and then it's still kind of unclear, but only about 3 Polish soldiers got killed, and which um, was of huge significance because the Taliban was really disappointed with how that attack went, because their account, the Taliban, they are saying that about 50 or 60 Taliban fighters were killed, which killing 50 or 60 Taliban fighters, that's huge. Like that's
Yeah.
a ton of them. There was never really that many Taliban fighters, so they thought it was incredibly costly and wasteful. So they abandoned the complex camp attack for probably 2 or 3 years.
Well, so what was life like for you afterwards? I mean, were you
I,
because you're so
I
blown up, man? I mean,
Yeah, so I was a mess, man, and I was on narcotics. They had the investigation, and our deployment was almost over, so nobody really wanted to send me home. They wanted to keep me there for the investigation, and somebody had to be responsible for me because you can't just be on narcotics and roaming around on in a combat zone. So I was hanging out with my company sergeant major, and he was kind of my battle buddy, and I would just be sitting around with him all the time.
yeah. Well, so fast forward after there's an investigation. I know you've got the Silver Star first, right? But then time passes, and you learn that you're actually going to get the MOH. What was it like hearing that? Then what was it like having it wrapped around your neck?
I never really, even when they told me that it was happening, I just didn't ever really believe in it. Um, it's just such a
Rare honor, man. It's so rare.
it's a rare honor. It's such a profound thing, and I just never really thought that it was going to happen for me. So even when people like I've been recommended for it, I didn't think it would happen. Even when they said it's been approved, I was like, well, um, it's been approved, but probably not. And I never really conceptualized that I was going to be a Medal of Honor recipient. Even going to the White House, it never occurred to me that I was about to be a Medal of Honor recipient. And when the president put it around me, I couldn't even feel it. I assumed when you look at it, you think it's this big weighty thing. Um, it's actually it's made out of the same metal. It's a bronze alloy. It's the same metal of every other award. It's actually probably a little bit lighter than say the Purple Heart. So when the president, put it around me, I couldn't even feel that it was hanging, and I had no sense that I was wearing it. But I remember looking out, and I could see Sergeant Major Tony Bell was in the audience, and Mark Colbert and Drew Busick. Those guys were all in the front row, and I could just see it in their eyes, that they were like literally just glowing with pride. And those are all dudes I aspired to be as good as a young Green Beret. And so then I just felt this weird feeling of them being proud of me. I could literally see it, and it was overwhelming, man. And I don't think I'll ever get used to wearing it. If you ever get used to being a Medal of Honor recipient, you're probably an asshole. I, this every time, it's this huge thing that I can't articulate.
Yeah. So what's life like? The last question I want to ask you before we go is what's life been like for you since?
Well, I retired. I got a job. Originally, I worked at Saab as on the Carl Gustav and AT4 systems, with a bunch of guys I had served with on active duty. So it was kind of cheating, man. I always speak about transitioning and deciding who you're going to be after you're a Green Beret. And I really cheated, man. I worked with people I had served with, and we didn't wear uniforms, but we didn't really change how we acted or how we did things. And um, that's what I was doing. I ended up starting my own consulting company on a procurement, on military procurement. But still, I'm doing the same things. And I had a procurement job in the Army. I'm working on the opposite side of that now. I'm trying to sell things to the Army, and but to me, I can spot whether an item is going to be useful for the warfighter. Um, so to me, I I'm not wearing a uniform, but I'm doing the same things. I'm looking at what companies have and what's emerging, and deciding what is of value to the warfighter and trying to get it in front of the military. So to me, it's been a very interesting transition because I'm at home more often and nobody shoots at me. But other than that, my life isn't substantially different.
Well, hey man, you are a badass amongst badasses, and I mean that sincerely. I get to talk to a lot of cool people, and I haven't got to talk to very many people or anyone that's had a life like yours or contributed uh, that contributed in the way that you did in the face of such adversity. And I just, as an American and a guy that, I feel like I've stood up for my country in the way that I could, and I feel very small standing next to you, man. So thank you so much.
So, man.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I'm a January 6er, man. I just stood up against the commies that stole an election and paid
Well,
the price.
that's important too. I get disappointed sometimes. So, I went out to defend my country, and then I came back, and half the country doesn't seem to value the country, and a good portion of them actively want to destroy it. So that was strange to me. I was like, I've been out here fighting all these violent Islamic extremists, and you guys didn't want me to. It's weird.
Yeah, well, so you come across as the perpetual optimist. And what do you tell young people that are getting started in their lives and careers today?
So I think I speak at a lot of the Medal of Honor Society has outreach. I serve with other patriotic organizations, and I don't want to tell anybody to be a Democrat or be a Republican. But I do speak to them that I think that the country's valuable, man, and it's worth fighting for. And if you're not proud of the country, make a country that you can be proud of. The country's made mistakes, right? I think we have a noble people that have done great works, and the majority of U.S. history is something that you can profoundly be proud of. Not all of it, right? And I think it's important to thread the needle on that. You can admit the country made mistakes, and I think that modern education system is so obsessed with pointing out everything negative that the country has done, that they literally forget to talk about all the positive things it's done. And you don't want to go back to necessarily like a 1950s style where we were always the good guys and we never made mistakes. That's not true, but I truly think the country has always tried to be on the right side of history and do the best for the American people. Every now and then we get it wrong, and when I speak to young people, I like to really emphasize that people like to beat the country over the head with issues like slavery, and I'm like, yeah, slavery was eradicated by this government and this army. Like the good guys won the Civil War. I don't know why I have to keep saying that.
Yeah.
That we fought a war to end slavery. Um, that's good. That's a profound good that this country's done. And I tell that to young people, and they've never heard it said like that.
They should have. So, hey, has your story has anyone approached you to help you write a book or to make a movie out of it?
Every now and then, man. For one, I want to set a good example for my community. I hate that the first thing somebody does after they are legally able to is write a tell-all book about the unit. So I don't think that's why I served, was that I was going to cash in on a book immediately. And so I want to set a good example for Green Berets that are out there, and not that I won't be involved in a project, but I want to do it in such a way that I want to bring all my friends with me that were there that I served with. If we wrote a book together, I would probably participate in it. But I just don't like the optics of every veteran getting out and writing a book. So if I ever had the situation where I could do something like that, I would probably participate. But I want to serve as a positive example of how you be a Green Beret when you're no longer a Green Beret, and cashing in on your service is not how we do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would feel about if I did write a book, financially benefiting from it, because to me, that story and my career belongs to the American people for sure, and at least it belongs to my brothers that I served with on the battlefield. So I don't know how I feel about writing a book that doesn't benefit everybody. I don't know that I'm built where I could probably do that, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't be against it. And also depending on how and why we're telling a story. There's kind of a veteran trope out there where everybody was a coward or a weakling or indecisive except for me. And to me, I've worked for some bad leaders, but they are definitely the minority. Almost everybody I served under and with were great, patriotic Americans that I was proud to be with. And Hollywood doesn't really want to tell a story like that. They want to tell a story about how everybody in the army was a dummy except for me, and I saved the day, and that just isn't the case. Even this battle, I've just never been on the battlefield really by myself. I've always had a group of people with me. My Medal of Honor narrative is certainly the only time in combat where I shot somebody and it was just me. Everybody, if somebody tells you they have a confirmed kill, I'm like, you and the four guys that were standing right next to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the time in combat, when you shoot somebody, 3 or 4 of your buddies shoot him too.
Well, I'm glad that you got recognized. And like, what I'd like to tell you as we go, man, is just thank you, God, for this man's service, and thank you for his life. And just I pray over your family and your future, and I hope it continues to affect people with your wonderful story. And thanks so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Man, it was great to be here with you.
Yeah, I'll be contacting you soon. I got some other stuff I want to throw your way, man. So God bless you. Yeah, have a good one, man. Talk to you soon. Thanks.